today's AutoInstruct video, we're going to show you how to install Burger Motorsports JB1 Performance Tune to suit the EA888 range of engines. Now our vehicle today is a MK7 Golf R, and this will require us to go under the vehicle to access one of the plugs on the bottom of the engine. However, this is not always required depending on your car. Now we're using the Revision 2 JB1 unit, which features a newly designed enclosure and only has 3 plugs instead of 4 in the original JB1. We've also already connected the USB cable for computer-based tuning, where we can change the maps and get logs. To install this cable, we simply popped open the case, screwed it in, and closed the case back up. Let's show you how to install it. As mentioned at the start of our video, depending on your make and model, you may need to crawl onto the front of the car to access one of the plugs on the bottom of the engine. In our case of a MK7 Golf R, you have to do this as there's absolutely no room down at the front of the engine to reach your hand down there to plug it in. So we've already got our vehicle set up on ramps, which is the safest method, and we've had the vehicle now turn off for about 15-20 minutes to let the car go to sleep. Now this is important because if you turn the car straight off and start unplugging looms, you will get error codes as the car's still awake. Alternatively, you can disconnect the battery on the negative terminal to completely turn the car off essentially, which also works. The Australian delivered MK7 Golf R has the largest possible capacity that Volkswagen offers and takes up the full length of the battery tray. This leaves very little room between the battery and the airbox for the JB1, which is traditionally used in other countries. So if you do have a small battery by standard, you can fit it down the front here, and it is relatively secure there. Alternatively, if you've got a full-size battery like we do in Australia, you can mount it on top of the ECU like we will do. Now there's plenty of clearance between the ECU, the JB1 and the bonnet. I've checked this and there's still about this much of a gap, which is great. And we'll just use double-side tape to stick it down. And it also depends on your ECU. The new ones run this enclosure which is completely sealed and also performs a perfectly flat surface for us to mount the JB1, which is pretty awesome. We'll then run the cable down here under the air intake and into the engine bay, which we'll show you later. We now have the JB1 firmly secured to the ECU. We've tucked away the USB cable and we've run the engine cable underneath the intake pipe, which we removed to feed underneath. Out here we've got 3 cables to plug in. The first connector goes to the map sensor, which is located just here, which is very easy to do. The second and the 2 fat connectors are plugged in just here. There's 2 connectors. It's the lower one on the front of the engine, which is somewhat difficult to sometimes pull out of its bracket. And then lastly, we have the longest cable, which is these 2, and the colourful cables. That feeds all the way down the front of the engine and connects to the boost pipe on the front of the engine. Now when installing each connector, you want to make sure you take the neatest path possible to make it look good. So here we have a JB1 loom for the map sensor. Now to remove the map sensor, you simply push down on the tab and pull backwards, like so. Then you get one side of your JB1 loom, and make sure it's the correct orientation, which is this way in our case. Plug it in till you hear the click, and then we'll get the other side and plug it into the map sensor down here. So again, push it in, hear the click, and with this one, push in the grey tab after you've heard the click to secure it in. And then we can just tuck this down the side to make sure the engine cover goes back on correctly. Looking down the front of the engine, here's the second connector we need to plug in. There's 2 connectors here, we're going for the lower one. Now for this, we need to slide it out of the bracket that it's sitting in to help bring it up. So I'm just going to go ahead and pull this out, and sorry for blocking your view. So pulling it towards the front of the car, it will slide up and out of the bracket that it's in. Now to disconnect this connector, on the back side there is a tab. So we push down on the tab and pull it apart, like so. There we have it separated. And then feed your JB1 loom neatly down under anything that you need to go underneath of, and again go ahead and connect it. Now this is a D-shaped plug, as you can see here. One side's flat, one side's round, so it's relatively easy to match up. And apologies for blocking your view here. So we'll go ahead and connect the first connector in, small click, and then I'll be flipping it over and installing the next connector. Is like so. In now. Now this original connector, which is the OEM side that's close to the engine, can now be slid back into the bracket that's down there, and then anything else can be cable tied up neatly. And then we'll move on to the bottom plug, which is located at the bottom of the engine. So we'll feed that plug straight down here, down the front of the engine, and we'll go ahead and crawl under the car and connect it. So to access plug D, we need to remove this splash shield. Now to do this, there's 8 or so Torx screws, 3 on that side, 1 here, and then 4 down this side. And once that's done, we simply release this clip and pull the splash shield out, and then we can access plug D, which is located just above here. So here we have our 2 JB1 plugs, which have dropped down from the front of the engine, staying away from the radiator fans, and we're going to run them across here into plug D. So plug D is located just up here, which you can see here. That there is plug D, and to release it, the easiest way to do it is to drive a screwdriver gently into the end here and push on it, and then the plug will be released. Now we've already gone ahead and done that, so pull the plug off, and then we'll go ahead and connect our JB1 plugs. So now that we've connected plug D on the bottom of the engine, we've reinstalled the splash shield, and now we're ready to start the car and test out the JB1. Just to recap, we've installed the JB1 here on top of the ECU, run the cable underneath, connected plug B on the map sensor, plug C on the front of the engine, and then plug D on the bottom. Now you may have noticed a short connector coming off the JB1 which isn't used. This is provisioned for future use in the JB4 concept when that's released from Burger Motorsports. So now we'll start the car, go for a drive. You may see a couple of lights which will be cleared very quickly after a few hundred meters of driving. That's completely normal. And then we'll start heading into the tuning capabilities of the JB1 on our computer. And we'll probably end up in map 6 and tweaking the settings to our specific requirements for this vehicle. Now stay tuned, as this week we're taking this vehicle to the dyno in Melbourne, and we're going to test out what the JB1 can actually do in map 6. Now this car is completely stock other than the JB1. A couple of weeks ago you may have seen our stock base run where we achieved something in the vicinity of 156 kilowatts at the wheels. So we're going to show you what the JB1 can do later in the week, so stay tuned and keep an eye out for that one. Other than that, thanks for watching. The JB1 can be purchased through the AutoInstruct online store. We've also got a range of Volkswagen products and tutorials for your vehicles. Thanks for watching.